Hey guys, I'm Jessie, and today we are going to be wrapping up everything that I read in the month of July. July was a blast. It was a busy month. It was my birthday month. I did my annual multi-family vacation to the beach with our really good friends, their kids and our kids, and this whole big thing. We rent a house and we go to the beach. Work has been decently busy. Summer is kind of a slumpy month in marketing for most people, so it's been a lot of ideas and stuff like that. So I've been kind of drained, but July's it's been a good month. I read 10 books, which is a lot for me because I am not power reader. 10 books is a lot. 9 of those books were for the Indie Accords Readathon, which I was able to co-host alongside my fellow co-captain Andrew at Andrew's Wizardly Reads. We were the captains of Team Narwhal, and I'm pretty sure we blew everyone else out of the water. Most of that probably thanks to the 25 books that Andrew was able to read. How? Man's a robot, I love him. But yeah, I pulled my weight and put in my contribution of 9 self-published books and then 1 book that I kind of had finished reading as an arc. So that one doesn't count towards the Indie Accords, but it does count towards books read this month. So without further ado, let's get into all of the books that I read in the month of July. The first book that I read in the month of July is Forgotten Souls by Mackenzie Morgan. This is the second book in the Immortal Sands series. I don't remember the name. Soul of Terrace is the name of the series. Immortal Sands is the first book. I actually have a full review if you want to check it out. This was so much fun. I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars. I loved it. I can't really explain it because it would spoil book 1. And, I'm not going to do that. This is a small, self-published author. I think there's 5 or 6 reviews. There's not a lot of reviews. And I don't know why. Because the first book reminds me a lot of, The Prison Healer. In vibes, right? In vibes. But not, necessarily in plot. But, it does involve, a prison break. And in the first book, we have our main girl, Finna, and she actually escapes a death prison. And she's the first person to do it in hundreds and hundreds of years. And she escapes and enlists her old childhood friend and then one of her friends, one of the childhood friend's friends, to go on this kind of quest with her where she's basically bringing down the ruling family. Because nobody really realizes it, but the ruling family is siphoning magic and killing people and controlling everybody. And it's really, really fascinating. The magic system in this is very interesting. It's a very light magic. It's very soft magic, but it's fun. And there is romance kind of in the first book. But it is minuscule and not really a part of the plot. It is very, very, very sideline, back burner. You just get hints of it. And honestly, I really liked that. Because it's we're in the middle of some deep shit. We're not really thinking about getting it on during these times. But there are times where it works and it's really, really great. So I really was excited to read the follow-up, and oh my god, the things that happened in this second book were really expanded upon the world. I thought it was so much fun, and I'm very excited. Apparently she's working on the third book. I have an inside scoop. Stephanie from Stephanie's Bookverse is the sister to the author, and she's the one that introduced me to the series. And I asked her, I'm so when are we getting book 3? And she's she's working on it. I'm okay, I am buying it as soon as it comes out because I absolutely loved it. So I will continue to be the one woman hype train for the Souls of Terrace series because no one else is talking about it, and they should be. And I'm going to continue to be this one woman hype train. Then I stepped outside of my comfort zone a little and read Nightmare by Chad Nichols. This is a horror. It's a paranormal horror. But I wasn't sure what to think going into it because I don't do a lot of horror. Granted, this is baby light. Okay, this was fine with me, and I don't do super gruesome. I don't like body horror. I don't like torture. Like, there's certain things I just don't like. Like, this is gruesome. It is horror. But it didn't disturb me. There were some things in the book that I was like, I want to say that there's a movie. I can't tell you which it is, but if you've read this, let me know. There is a movie, and this book reminds me at the end of this movie that, like, everyone seems to forget exists because, like, it wasn't really a horror movie. It was more like a thriller, but it reminded me so much of it, but I don't want to say what because I don't want to, like, spoil it for anybody that wants to read it. But not in a bad way. I liked it, and I liked that movie. So if you know the movie, like, spoiler tag and then, like, let me know because if you've read this. But this book, we follow our main character, and he is a husband and dad, and weird shit starts happening, basically. So he had a very traumatic childhood experience where he was, like, kidnapped and, like, kept in a cage, and he has this, like, existential dread fear of crows, and he also, you know, just he has trouble sleeping and nightmares and stuff like that. And, like, weird stuff starts happening, and as the book goes on, it's like everything kind of descends more and more into chaos and madness. And then you learn certain things about this main character, and you're like, oh, is he the good guy? Is he the bad guy? And then it's just a really good twist at the end as well that I didn't really see coming. But then looking back, you're like, oh, okay. So I really enjoyed this. And yes, it was bloody and violent, and there's some content warnings. There's, like, child death, animal death. It's horror, bloody, violent. Like, obviously, like, the kid gets kidnapped and tortured. So yeah, look up any content warnings, but I really did enjoy this one. Then I read Vortex of Visions by Elise Kova. This is the first book in the continuation series after Air Awakens. Wow, that was a mouthful. Air Awakens was one of the, like, first self-published series I really got into. Read it on Kindle Unlimited. Absolutely loved it, right? So good. And then I realized that Elise Kova, the author, had released a secondary series within that world following characters that are, like, children of characters in book one. Or series one. So I read the first one and I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. It was all that I remembered, right? It's fast paced, there's romance, elemental magic, like the writing is really good and easy to follow, and it's not going to take you a lot of time to read. And I just enjoy it. I enjoyed Kova's writing. I really like the slight changes and developments. Like, if you haven't read Air Awakens, like, you're not going to get it because this is literally a direct sequel, if that makes sense. But I really like seeing how different characters from the original have aged and how they've kind of developed, like, off page, and then how the magic has kind of changed and how the politics of the world have changed and yet not changed at the same time, and just everything is kind of opened up a little bit more in this series. Really enjoyed it. And I plan to finish it. I only read the first one, and there's, like, 5 books, but these books are pretty short. They're, like, a little over 200 pages each. So you can fly through the whole series. I think it's all 5 of them were, like, a little over 1,000 pages. Then I read The High Auction. This one I did kind of struggle with a bit at first. It was just not really fully clicking with me, but it was really interesting. We're following this girl who has her memory, like, erased for some unknown reason at the very beginning, and she's only like 4 years old in this book, but she's, like, really, like, an older teenager, I think, or 20, but, like, she's only had memories for, like, the past few years. She's been raised by this family that's, like, this rich family with a sister, but, like, she knows nothing of her true self, her true anything. Like, she has no memories. But she does know that she wants to get into this auction and see this book that is supposed to, like, be magical and you know everything. And I think it's, like, the Devil's Book or something like that. And that is kind of all I'm going to give you because it's kind of a confusing story, but it was good. I do have book 2, and yeah, it is a self-published, really beautiful Indian-inspired fantasy. Then I read Dragon Mage by M.L. Spencer, and this might have been my favorite book of the entire readathon. It was so good. This is a very long, like 900-page almost fantasy book. But y'all, it's so worth it. I'm actually planning on doing like a full standalone review for this book, so I'm just going to give you the short and quick of it. This follows 2 main characters, Aram and Marcus, and we start when they are young, like 12, 14. And Aram is different. He doesn't have many friends. He is a little strange and odd. He's coded autistic. So as somebody that has, you know, an autistic family members and like, you know, my son, we're working on some stuff. So there's high possibility that my son is somewhere on the spectrum. I really appreciated that. For one, he was coded autistic in a very respectful way. I want to say that right off the bat before I even give a review of this book. It wasn't a caricature type anything. It was in a very well-researched, respectful way that this character is coded as autistic. And I really appreciated all of, you know, the work and labor that went into creating Aram as a character. Outside of that, we follow them and come to find out, you know, they have these abilities. Aram is like super magical and Marcus is immune to all magic. And they are basically taken. Like everyone wants them, right? Like the Empire wants them. And Marcus is like thrown into this like training for the military bad people. And then they try to do that with Aram, but then they're like, nah, we're just going to siphon off his magic. And so for 4 years, they're kind of just think he's dead and they're being siphoned. And then he escapes and he goes to this like other world where there is dragons and magical people and he learns more about who he is. And I'm making this sound really weird because I'm trying not to spoil anything, but like all of this happens like at the very beginning of the book. It's a very short part of the book where it's like getting to this like other world. It's so good. There's dragons and dragon riders and magic. Like I don't need to say anything else. Then I also read another Elise Kova book, and that is Trial of Sorcerers. So I'm glad that I read Vortex Visions, the first book at least, before this. But I will say you should probably read Bo, like all of Vortex Visions before reading this, because there's like there's like minor spoilers, which doesn't bother me. It is said that this is supposed to be able to be a standalone within the world. But if you plan on reading Air Awakens or Vortex Visions, it will spoil some stuff. Especially Air Awakens. And like you won't be familiar with the people and the world because there are characters from Air Awakens and Vortex Visions within this. So like they're not like super spread apart. So I recommend reading them in publication order. But I didn't take my own damn advice, but at least I read the first of the Vortex Visions. I loved this though. We have a magical competition and our main girl has not really got a lot of friends. She's picked on and whatever because of an incident that happened a few years before this book. And she ends up being like, screw you, and entering this magical competition even though nobody wants her to do it. And she's like, screw you, I'm gonna win. And it was quite entertaining. And it was fun. And I loved it. Just like all of Elise Kova's books. They're fun and fast and entertaining. Then I read Never Die by Robert J. Hayes. This was another one that I read on Kindle Unlimited and had a great time. The best way I can describe this is it felt like an anime in book form. So I honestly think this would have worked maybe slightly better in a visual format, like a manga or like graphic novel, but I still really enjoyed it. We have this kid who is on a quest to kill the emperor and he needs to collect these heroes to help him, but in order for the heroes to help him, they have to be dead. So he's collecting dead heroes to help him kill this evil emperor. And it is so good. Then we finished The Rebel by J.R. Chaz. This is the sequel to The Rave, which I read earlier this year. I also have a full review for that one, if you want to check out more about the first book in the series. This picks up like 2 years after the events of book 1, and it expands on the world so much. We go to, you know, different places than we went in the first book, different cities. And this whole series so far has been very sci-fantasy. Like, there is like some fantasy aspects to it where it feels like there's paranormal creatures and stuff like that. But it is very science fiction-esque as well, with like biotech and stuff like that. So it's very, I would call it sci-fantasy. I had so much fun. As the name probably gives away, there's a rebellion. And I absolutely love a rebellion. I had so much fun with this. The first book in the series was really, really good. If you want to go check it out, I will leave the review. Highly recommend it. Then I read Legends and Lattes, which everyone kept saying was, you know, a very sweet and wholesome, just fun book, and they were all right. This was such a cute book. It's an orc opening a coffee shop in a world where nobody knows what coffee is. And she's trying to turn her life around from being this like fighter and warrior to just she wants to own a coffee shop. And it's just cute and sweet. And I love it. Like, there's no other way to talk about it other than it's a cute, sweet, slice of life, cozy fantasy. And then the final book that I read in the month of July is The Maleficent 7. This, again, is not like an indie self-pub book. I had this on NetGalley and wanted to finish it off because I had started it, hadn't finished it. I really enjoyed this one. It was different, but I ended up enjoying it. Again, this is one that I feel would lend itself to a very visual medium, like a show, like an animated show, or even like a graphic novel. But I still really, really enjoyed it. We follow the bad guys. Like, we follow this one lady called the Black Heron, and she kind of was this like evil overruler general that was like determined to overthrow the world and be the ruler. And one day on the eve of battle, she just walked away, left all her captains, and everything kind of went to shit. Well, this is 40 years after that. So we're following old people. And I love that. If y'all don't know, you know I love following old people. So she is described as like graying and, you know, fragile, and like all these like older characters are described as actual older. So they're in their like 60s, I want to say, at the time of this book. So like they are all older. Like, she's a grandmother. And basically she has to pull all her generals back together to take on this like even worse threat to the world. And they don't all get along and like each other, and they are all evil and crazy, but they kind of band together once more to take on even more evil and crazy. So it was a lot of fun. There's a twist at the end that you're like, oh snap. And like it's a standalone, but there was enough open ending that it could have a sequel. So we'll see. Whew. All right. I read a lot this month. I talked a lot in this video, but thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you have read any of these books, let me know what like your thoughts on them. If you plan on picking some of them up, some of my indie book favorites that I've read, let me know, because I think more people need to pick up some of these books, especially these self-published, just fantastic fantasy books. All right. Well, my name is Jessie, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.